evening, everyone.
One second, Madam Mayor.
Shay?
Recording here.
Recording in progress.
Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to those in the audience to our financial plan open house. All of council is here with the exception of Councillor Belanger, and we also have our CAO and our office manager and our finance manager with us this evening. And with that, we do have a presentation that our CAO is going to go through, so I will hand it over to him to start the presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we'll start off with the financial plan and an introduction to our financial plan. And as part of our introduction, Madam Mayor, you have something to say as part of the introduction.
This one?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, first of all, this is a message from all of council. We wanted to first thank all our residents for coming out to vote in the 2022 election and to all candidates who put their name forward in the election. We all appreciate your support in getting our team re-elected this term and continuing the good work that has been started. Council is excited to serve our citizens for another 4 years and deliver on the priorities identified by our residents. After the election, Council began a review of the previous strategic plan in February of 2023, with the intention to review the strategic plan so we could update the vision, strategy, priorities, and values of our community, along with setting the goals and direction we heard from our ratepayers. In the coming months, we will be working towards further communication and consultation with our ratepayers on the goals and direction established in the strategic plan. Council is committed to work towards providing services to our ratepayers to build a safe and healthy community in the current economic environment as a result of the global pandemic. The RM of St. Clements continues to be the place to be with the growth we are experiencing and various Manitobans also looking to spend more time utilizing the various amenities the RM has to offer. Council and administration are committed to delivering the priorities for our municipality by improving services and delivering various capital projects to enhance our community. Council has been working hard to continue to be more transparent and accessible to our citizens through the use of technology, online meetings, social media, and public engagement. With the value of communication and openness, the financial plan overview is being provided as additional information in a format that will help to highlight the priorities of the 2023 financial plan. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to our CAO, who will go through the slides for our financial plan open house.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we're presenting the financial plan for the RM of St. Clements. The plan has been developed through collaboration with administration and council. It addresses revenues and expenditures, projects being put forward, and most importantly, what are the priorities of the municipality. The financial plan helps in taking the municipality in a direction that will enable it to manage expected growth and infrastructure requests for services while keeping the tax rate sustainable and protecting the environment. The financial plan also takes into consideration the unexpected challenges the municipality may face due to uncertain times we are presently encountering. The financial plan also supports the draft strategic plan initiative in February of 2023 and the goals established in that plan. As to the strategic plan, after the review in February of 2023, the current strategic plan, Council determined the new vision, mission, values that will guide decision-making over the next 4 years. Our vision is a welcoming, diverse, and growing communities supporting safe lifestyles for all ages to live, recreate, and be prosperous. The mission, which was added this year, is also to highlight that the RM of St. Clements is committed to sustainable growth, enhanced amenities and services, and offering people of all ages desirable places to live and recreate. The municipality supports diverse land uses and settlement types while maintaining an environment where diverse residents across the municipality coexist in harmony. The values that go along with that mission are communication and openness. We will communicate our plans and intentions openly and work with residents and stakeholders to understand ideas, concerns, and work towards solutions. Collaboration and respect is we will work together as a council, administration, and residents to arrive at a clear plan of action that, with the willingness to compromise, build consensus, and respect one another. Another major value is diversity. We seek to uphold and increase the functional diversity in land uses, communities, and lifestyles available for all ages across our municipality. And financially accountable. We will responsibly grow our tax base and reduce inefficient expenses and inactive assets to achieve accountability and desirable levels of service for all our residents. And then continuous improvement is another one that was added in. We will empower staff at all levels to recommend better working practices and minimize inefficiencies through continuous improvement techniques to enable the municipality to save money and increase quality without reducing the level of service. With the vision, mission, and values, they help to identify the goals that the council will move towards in the next 4 years. Those goals are comprehensive plan for roads, drainage, water, and waste. Establish and communicate priorities for a basic services plan for every area of the municipality to address roads, drainage, water, solid waste, and sewer. And affordability, another goal, which is to keep costs affordable for ratepayers. Targeted sustainable growth, increase sustainable growth in East Selkirk, Grand Marais, Henderson, East, Lockport, and Lebo. Anticipate future needs and amenities and services, focusing on recreation and key destination. Evolve amenities and services to prepare for the future needs of our changing communities. And finally, build diverse, resilient, and sustainable communities. Focus on community development through service improvements and dialogue with communities. The vision and values help to establish these goals, which guide the financial planning and the service delivery to our residents. The financial plan attempts to address all of the goals identified. In these unprecedented times, it's also become clear that the municipality has to be prepared for unknown, sometimes difficult external influences on finances, resources, and service levels. Our responsibility is to also develop strategies and actions to minimize the impact of these influences to provide a level of predictability for our ratepayers. To succeed, we need to grow and attract young families. To do this, we need to provide the amenities and services people are seeking and when deciding to purchase or build a home. We need to create an environment that can offer the type of housing diversity that can help our youth stay in the community and allow our citizens to age in their home community. Along with that, a review with what our current environment was established. The Arm St. Clements has established a vision, as previously noted, the population growth estimates were conservative at 1,600 to 4,200 by 2036. And these were estimates for the RM were around 5.1% per year going forward, which is about 500 houses per year. Based on the 21 census of 6.5% growth, the estimated growth could be over 8,000 by 2036, as opposed to 4,200. And so one constant that we know based on this is happening is change in our current environment. We are very fortunate to be a growing municipality. As growth is managed and facilitated, it can also be an important contributor to sustainable tax levels for the citizens of the municipality. We also have various challenges and demands for increased service levels and increased responsibility placed on the RM by provincial legislation, which with limited revenue growth. The municipality needs to be prepared for unknown and sometimes difficult external influences on finances, resources, and service levels. As we have seen from recent weather events, the municipality has to respond quickly when these events occur. Our responsibility is to develop strategies and actions to provide a level of predictability for our ratepayers. Council and administration are committed to delivering the priorities of our municipality by improving service and delivering various capital projects to enhance our community. The RMSA Clements continues to be the place to be with the growth we are experiencing, and various Manitobans are looking to spend more time utilizing various amenities in the RM, as was mentioned by the mayor. Along with that, we're also dealing with inflationary increases and developing of regional infrastructure. From this, we identified priorities. The priorities for service delivery have been communicated through the strategic plan by creating goals and actions, which the budget supports. In addition, priorities from external influences have been identified, such as climate change, increasing costs, economic development opportunities, or regional infrastructure. And so, climate change and its impact on our existing drainage network, along with our ability to respond to anticipated severe weather events, needs to be addressed. An example would be the late falls of storms of 2019, the droughts of 2021, the winter storms of 2022, or the COVID-related expenses. As well, it is understood that much of the infrastructure of roads and buildings in the RM were built over 50 years ago, and fixing or replacing these assets will be expensive endeavor. The demand for improvement to transportation networks and recreation opportunities continues to be a priority for the RM and its citizens. Council and administration are also very aware of the importance of keeping taxation reasonable in the long term. Therefore, opportunities need to be explored for managing expenses and revenue growth through economic development. Focus on development of regional infrastructure allows for the reduction of costs and increasing service levels with a focus on exploring operational efficiency through technological advancements and systems. So, getting to goal number 1, comprehensive plan for roads, drainage, and water and waste. In 2020, the RM had identified several major road projects that were needed in order to continue to provide quality infrastructure through proper asset management. The projects are being completed using our infrastructure reserve created through the previous financial planning processes. Our financial plan continues to support a $4 million commitment over 4 years, over the 4-year term of council. In fact, the funding commitment is expected to surpass $4 million by estimates today. In addition, in 2022, the RM encountered several severe weather events that required submission for disaster financial assistance in 2022. As a result, there were 5 major capital projects totaling over $4.5 million that were approved by the province and are to be completed in 2023. These are the Road 89 slope failures at $3.5 million, Ashfield Road slope repair at $449,000 plus, Ludwig Road slope failure at $92,000, Old Henderson north of the bridge at $180,000, Old Henderson south of the bridge for ditch erosion for $301,000 at the south of the bridge, and north of the bridge at $180,000, totaling over $4.5 million. This year, we're also looking to enhance our contract for roadside mowing, which has shown to be a success from 2020 and 2021, with some adjustments that we are making based on what we learned from 2022. Along with the move towards comprehensive road structure, we have to recognize that we covers over 728 square kilometers in this area. Drainage projects continue to be a priority. And in order to reduce the overland flood risks for priority areas, the RM continues to work on priority drains and complete further drainage studies. Climate change and its impact on our existing drainage network, along with our ability to respond to unanticipated events, continues to be a priority. In 2021, the RM finished many long-standing drainage issues and now has begun to focus on priorities related to unanticipated events. In order to continue to reduce the overland flooding risk, the RM's budget again identifies work on priority drains and complete further drainage studies to address climate change. In the previous term of council, the RM finished many long-standing drains, as was already identified. Continuing on with strategic plan goal number 1, the 2023 financial plan continues to support a commitment to funding of the hard surface road maintenance over the 4-year term of council. and expects to surpass, as mentioned, over $4 million over this term. The specific project for each year for hard surface roads is funded from the Council's commitment to roads through the 1 mil rate dedication for road improvements per year. In 2023, the RM will be continuing to invest in major road projects funded through that 1 mil rate of $903,717 to the road reserve. The major road project for this year in the road plan, as identified in our 20-year road plan, will be Wackel Drive for $710,000 and $938. In 2023, a commitment to complete previous hard surface roads at approximately $3.5 million has also been put forward in this budget. Increased budget for gravel operations and road maintenance by $35,000. Increased budget for dust control by $56,000 has also been added into this year's budget. Strategic Plan Goal 1 continuing. What we have is issues to deal with various drainage works. There's a typo on this slide that I'll be correcting for the future slide, which is that shouldn't have been PATH, it should have been PTH for PTH 44. So in Ward 1, what we have is the ditching works at IXL Park. Then we have from PTH 44 to 29 East, Kirkness PTH 4 to Pine, a harder drain ditching, Hay Road, and the drain from Nicholas to the RM boundary are all proposed drainage works this coming year. And Ward 2, 81 North and 2 Mile Road, Pioneer Road, Pellets ditching, Bridgeview to and Raxon, and the Glenmore drain ditching will all be done. It should be also noted that increased drainage operating budgets have also been put forward this year. Brushing in ditches have been increased by $50,000. Drainage and ditching work altogether also has been increased by $60,000. The increases will also address cutting into the ditches right at the bottom of the ditches much more lower, so that we can continue to manage our drainage in the RM. And finally, as part of the comprehensive plan for roads drainage, there's water and waste. In 2021, the RM borrowed $5.5 million by taking advantage of $4.3 million of previous borrowing authority that was redirected to the RM's infrastructure priorities of Phase 1 of the South St. Clements Regional Network infrastructure. As you may recall, this was done as part of the savings that we received from various grants, some totaling well over $3 million, and 2.7 of that was specifically related with the drainage in the south. And as well as the East Selkirk Water Softener project was initiated in here. This allowed the RM to leverage the borrowing with infrastructure grants from the province of Manitoba's Water Services Board to a total estimated project funding of $9.7 million for those two projects. That allowed to finish up the twin force mains going to the south, as well as upgrading the water treatment plant to accommodate for the next 25 years of growth. Phase 1 of the two projects was completed in 2022, and we have begun connecting individuals in the south to the sewer projects. And in 2023, the RM has been approved for Phase 2 of those two projects, which will bring $3.25 million of grants for a total of $6.5 million of investment in water and wastewater management. Of that, the water main line to Lockport from East Selkirk will be constructed, and that will be at $4.5 million, and a new lift station and the decommissioning of the Lockport sewer plant for $2 million, which will expand our capacity to continue to increase the amount of wastewater coming into the regional lagoon in East Selkirk. Moving on to strategic plan goal 2 of affordability, which was to keep costs affordable for ratepayers, implement cost recovery user fees for non-core services, functional review of all infrastructure and public service levels, tax increases, manage those related to budget issues and council priorities, apply continuous improvement techniques to achieve cost reductions. So the delivery of services to the citizens of Armas relies significantly on property taxes and as the main source of revenue. The other sources of revenue of the municipality is made up of business taxes, utilities, fees, grants, and reserves. With targeted sustainable growth and managing costs for our ratepayers, it'll be important to concentrate on the other sources of revenue to reduce reliance on property taxes. And so, moving on to affordability, the RM has continued to see inflationary increases in the delivery of service for the construction costs and gravel purchases and fuel costs as all throughout the province is experienced. In order to provide that predictability to address these inflationary increases, Council is proposing to freeze the mill rate for 2023 at the same rate it was at in 2022. And to also look at to freeze the mill rate in 2024 at the same rate. As part of the 3-year budget planning, Council is also projecting a 1% increase in 2025, depending on the rate of inflation and its impact on our operations. 2023 is also recognized as a reassessment year, and many properties will see an increase in property assessments. It is anticipated that any property assessment increases and resultant tax increases will be somewhat offset by the increase in the school tax rebate this year. It's difficult to determine the exact offset as many property reassessments are based on market value, and some of those properties will go higher and some may go lower. The province of Manitoba is proposing further increases this year on the school tax rebate, as well as looking at a further increase in 2024. And with the mill rate of the RM remaining constant, it will further reduce the overall property taxes to our ratepayers. It is anticipated that the 2023 budget and the proposed 2024 budget will provide a level of predictability in the long run and reduce the tax burden on our residents. And the 2023, in review of the taxes on households, so it's not just about tax collection. So when we take a look at the taxes on households, the municipality has only one significant source of income, being property taxes, as I mentioned a few times tonight. A review of the median household income of about $86,912 was used in with the 2015 dollars from Statistics Canada in their 2026 census, which also showed average household income of about $104,000 in St. Clements. A comparison against the income tax and education levies sources of revenue for the province was used against the municipal portion of the property taxes, estimated this year to be $1,404 for an average household in St. Clements assessed at $300,000. It should be noted other sources of income such as PST, GST, and federal taxes were not used for this comparison, which are growth revenues for the province and the federal government. The above chart shows the distribution of the funds to services for municipal taxes, provincial and federal grants and service fees, transfers of cumulative surpluses, and transfers for specific purpose reserves. As you can see, based on our budget, we show, and so it should be noted, in 2023, the municipal taxes only paid for 51% of the entire budget of the municipality. The above chart allocates the proportionate share of the municipal taxes to the budgeted services. So, as you will see later, we talk a lot about how these funds are separated. This chart shows that the distribution of those funds for the services for municipal taxes. The municipal taxes pay for approximately 43% of the entire budget. Did I say 43%? 43% of the entire budget for the municipality. So when we take a look at this, what you can see is a significant portion is in our transportation, general government services, and protected services, and environmental health services, and the other is fiscal services. This is where the municipality places money into reserves and uses the reserves to fund the majority of the capital projects that we need to do as a municipality. And so to show you a little further breakdown, how do those services break down for an average house assessed at $300,000? That means out of the $1,404 of municipal taxes that are being paid. Only the general government services is going for $124. Transportation is $308 of that. Protective services is $56 and $98 for environmental health services. And fiscal services is the other larger one, as well as transfers to reserves. And those are funds that flow in and out of our reserves as we manage our various capital projects to reduce the burden on our ratepayers. This year, the province has also made the commitment to reducing the school taxes by 50% in 2023, but also has looked at reducing school taxes overall. The 50% refund of the 2023 from the province will be sent out to our taxpayers by check directly from the province. The tax bill will be $1,404 for the average property assessed at $300,000 property valued home. The chart shows, as you can see, the overall proportion of tax collected. It's still 54% collected for school taxes, while 46% is municipal taxes. Now, out of that 54%, our residents will see 26% returned back to them. And so, as you can see from this chart, from the 46%, 28% of that goes to transfers and reserves. Grants and fees is another 21% of $4 million. And the municipal taxes is the 51%, as I mentioned earlier. So, as part of this, we also need to take a look at how do we fare with municipalities around us. Despite the financial challenges facing municipalities, it's important that we keep the costs affordable for our community. St. Clements is committed to managing this tax rate, and this table shows our 2023 mill rate is among the lowest when compared to our neighbors. The mill rate is not always the best indicator when comparing taxes between municipalities, as numerous other factors must also be considered, especially when we take a look at municipalities with significantly lower mill rates. The average cost of homes, lot size, density, and the amount of commercial and industrial assessment and service levels all contribute to the level of taxation. The per dwelling comparison also addresses some of these challenges, but it does not offer also a clear picture. Some of the listed municipalities have substantial commercial and industrial properties, which impact the revenue for the RM. Also, they're much smaller in some cases, and it has an impact on it. The RM has continued to see inflationary increases in the delivery of services, construction costs, gravel purchases, and fuel costs. If the inflation persists, or if we even go into a recession as a result of the global pandemic, there will be considerable pressure on municipal resources and service delivery. The cost of fuel, hydro, and wages continues to rise. In order to provide predictability and address inflationary increases, Council is proposing to freeze that mill rate, as mentioned earlier, for 2023 at the same rate as 2022, and also to look at freezing the mill rate in 2024 at the same rate. The freeze in the mill rate in 2023 will show no increase on the municipal portion of a tax bill for property assessed at the same amount as 2022. We do recognize that it is a reassessment year, and as I mentioned earlier, it can increase property values somewhat, but the school tax rebate of 50% coming from the province should help to offset some of that, so whereby having minimal impact, if any, to our ratepayers. It is difficult to determine the exact offset, as I mentioned earlier, because of various factors. Some places will see 10%, 5% increase. Some places may see significantly more, depending on the value of the land. As part of the 3-year budgeting planning, Council is also projecting a 1% increase in 2025, as mentioned earlier. As identified earlier, municipalities have limited options available for generating revenues, and taxes are the only source available. And so I do want to point out that municipalities that are of similar sizes as the RM are seeing sometimes significant tax increases. When we take a look at Selkirk, which is next door, and you see an increase in taxes. You'll see Broken Head having an increase in taxes. Alexander is having a drop in taxes, but that is a different type of municipality, but even then, they are still significantly higher than they are in St. Clements. Lac du Bonnet saw a decrease last year and are seeing a significant increase on top of the reassessment. So as you can see, Stonewall is again also higher than the R of St. Clements. And then Springfield is also higher than the R of St. Clements. Now, St. Andrews is a similar community, and they are somewhat less, about 4% less than the R of St. Clements, but we have significantly larger infrastructure projects than the R of St. Andrews is doing. And we also have a significant amount of difference in the residents compared to both. East St. Paul, West St. Paul, Rosser, and Headingley are definitely lower. And I should note that the PowerPoint that was posted on the website was corrected as of this afternoon. We received an update from West St. Paul, and what we had was the number was a little slightly higher than this, but what it is today is 7.855 is being recommended. I should note that all of those municipalities, one of the most significant impacts that happen is the amount of non-residential development that's occurring in those municipalities. All of those municipalities have significant amount of commercial and industrial lands, and they are having a significant impact on being able to reduce on the taxpayers. What has precipitated that? In each one of those municipalities, what's precipitated is infrastructure of water and wastewater, which is exactly what we've been focusing on ourselves as well. Along with keeping costs affordable, it's also fiscal cash flow management is critical. In previous years, from 2019 and up to 2017, you can see that the RM continued to rely on its line of credit to pay for costs that were incurred through capital and other things. Now that we've been doing better reserve management and better management of our finances, you can see that we have stayed into the positive level of cash flow management, which means we are not paying all those interest charges for utilizing our line of credit. We're able to rely on our own, as some people would say, cash to capital as opposed to borrow. And so, as part of the next goal, which is Strategic Plan Goal 3, targeted sustainable growth, increase sustainable growth in East Selkirk, Grand Marais, Henderson, East Lockport area, Lebo, strengthen the planning processes, proactively identify attractive opportunities to increase housing options and employment lands, and remove barriers to sustainable growth and future expansion of the tax base, and use incentives to attract the right kind of development, and communication and engagement strategy to accompany the above. Those are the specific strategies that have been identified with that goal. And with those strategies, what we have is good planning is essential to provide these services at a reasonable cost for generations to come. Poorly planned development could result in additional maintenance expenses without property tax revenue to support the cost. Good planning can identify opportunities to increase housing options and lead to an expansion of our tax base. Economic development is important, as well as other ways to find to make investments in St. Clements attractive. This could mean an expansion of our industrial and commercial lots or targeted rezoning efforts. The administration has engaged with our planning and consultants and Red River Planning to review some complex subdivisions, create concept plans, and will pass text amendments to our zoning bylaw. We will continue to identify marketable lots and land parcels with a review to the real estate market and improve liaisons with developers at early stages. The RM continues to promote lands for conservation subdivision as well. Along with that, there was, as you can see, we've identified the zoning text bylaw amendments and bylaw updates that we'll be doing in South St. Clements, Lebo, and Grand Marais. Henderson Sewer Project also, as you can see, has been identified here, which allows for the proper orderly development, which will be this year, including a lift station and decommissioning of an old plant that was at end of life. The East Selkirk Water Treatment Plant upgrades and expansions have been identified. Phase 2 are being done, and we've already planned for Phase 3 of those projects to allow us to plan for the next 25 years and into the future. Supporting the subdivisions and streamlining approvals as part of our With concierge service, we've continued to streamline these approvals and support some of the provincial legislation that goes along with supporting subdivisions. Supporting industrial park development and expansion, we've been working closely with our economic development on how we can continue to take advantage of our IXL park and other lands that are suitable for industrial development. Seniors housing opportunities are continuing being explored, and there's opportunities for more seniors housing in the south and north as we continue to explore those. Marketing and disposal of surplus land has always been identified, and we continue to remove barriers to growth, whether they be planning or legislative. Along with that, we're doing a request for proposal to a multi-use commercial residential option in East Selkirk, which will be along the daycare that is already being built right now. And by the end of this week, you'll see a building up. The regional infrastructure is being developed right now, Henderson Sewer Project, the next phase, as well as water treatment plant expansion going into 2023 and 2024. Water lines to Lockport are being put in this year. Economic development opportunities in Lockport and Grand Marais are currently being explored for significant tax growth. Seniors and affordable housing opportunities in East Selkirk are being explored today, and as well as commercial development in East Selkirk, as well as a commitment to recreational opportunities. And to that, we'll talk about what additional works we are doing to deal with recreational opportunities. We're evolving amenities and services to prepare for the future needs of our changing communities. With partners, develop and implement a recreational strategy. As we can see, we need to evolve our amenities and services to prepare our future needs of our changing communities. This is important to retain and grow our population. We will be undertaking and completing our recreational needs plan and identify the quality of life infrastructure and programming that is needed. And we are excited about the new activity center, which is a $6 million project in South St. Clements, which is our St. Clements activity center on a 10-acre piece of land on Donald Road. This year, we've already seen the work of the groundwork in the park has been completed, and we are moving forward with the construction of the activity center. The plan already includes a walking track, water features, areas for programming space, and the recreation building will also allow for after-school programs and other amenities inside our major activity center for the RM. The administration has also increased fitness programs for adults through partners through Corpus Christi, and as well as we continue to examine and utilize the partnerships with other community centers throughout the RM to start offering that service through our recreation manager. The administration will also be utilizing the needs assessment that was completed previously to direct that future programming into the areas where the needs are most needed. And moving on, with that, we continue to advocate for and support community grants. And we've been working with each one of the community groups and have received a significant number of community grants as our recreation manager has been working actively with each one of those community groups. We continue to provide also specific grants to our community and recreation projects and organizations, which was well over $190,000 last year, and will be continuing to the same levels this year. Constructions of the $6 million St. Clements Activity Center has been established, and the work should begin soon. Construction of a daycare in East Selkirk has been identified, and it's occurring, and we're looking to possibly even add another daycare if we have an opportunity. Contribution of $200,000 towards recreation reserve was put forward this year from the surpluses from last year, and identification of $300,000 towards a boat launch in the RM St. Clements. As well, moving on to the next one, which is to build diverse, resilient, and sustainable communities. Unlike some of the municipalities, St. Clements can boast a range of exceptional four-season outdoor recreational opportunities. and they are increasingly getting noticed, whether it's more people ice fishing or Travel Manitoba's work to brand East Beaches as a destination. There's a unique opportunity in St. Clements to build on this momentum. Positive interest in these recreational amenities can be a source of pride for residents and showcase the municipality for future residents, increasing the potential of future economic spin-offs. The RM has worked collaboratively to form a tourism marketing committee, Beaches of 59 for the East Beaches. And our collaborative work with other municipalities and Grand Beach Provincial Park have helped to promote destination tourism in the East Beaches area. The RM will continue to focus on these services as well as continuing with the funding summer seasonal washrooms at the 4 beach locations. We'll continue to focus on partnerships with school divisions and existing organizations such as the East Suffolk Recreation Association and the Grand Marais Recreation Association. We're looking to implement organizational succession planning, working with those communities to make sure that volunteer base continues. We're creating a community that is welcoming and foster sustainability within the community. So working with those community groups, we're going to be looking at engaging consultation to be able to see how those communities can be more sustainable and welcoming. We're going to engage local residents and get increased input and dialogue on the community resiliency and diversity that's needed to be able to continue to grow those communities in an RM the size of the RM of St. Clements. So those all lead to the final numbers, which is the 2023 financial plan. As you can see, in 2022 we had budgeted total tax levy, which is now adjusted for 2023, and as you can see for 2024, it's showing for the same amounts. And what you can see as a school requisition taxes have also gone up a little bit overall. As for the municipal taxes and grants in lieu, we will continue to see some changes there. And finally, our cumulative surplus reserves using to pay for capital funds. And you can see how we're transferring the funds and looking at various other revenues as part of that. Other revenues can come from sources such as our landfill tipping fees and other places, and grants. So for expenditures, which most people are very interested in, our general government services is close to what was budgeted. We continue to show that we are managing our costs. As we do manage those costs, those become our surpluses, and those surpluses are used to then further reinforce our reserves as necessary so that we can do the appropriate budgeting. As to protective services, last year was a significant year based on the environmental issues that we encountered, and because of that, we anticipate that there may be further of those, then we are looking at an increase. Transportation services, as you can see, what was budgeted did come in higher as actuals, and we anticipate a lot of those costs were related with the severe storms that we had last year, and we're looking at relatively modest increase on that compared to previous years. The environmental health services, as you can see, we had budgeted. We're continuing similar to that budget with a modest increase, and any savings that we do see in the environmental health services, which includes our wastewater management, we then take advantage of. And that includes our landfill site, which requires some additional investment this year. That's why we're projecting a lower level in 2024. Economic development services, we budget that there's many different components of economic development. That isn't just salaries of employees, of various grants and other things that go into economic development. And we're anticipating some growth as we continue to see growth in that area. Recreational cultural services, as you can see, we are anticipating significant growth in the recreational cultural services, and we are anticipating that, and much of that is for this year. A good chunk of that is that there's some money put forward for work in Grand Marais for the GMCC, and that increase has been put in to do some capital investment in that area through reserves. And then what we have is the final fiscal services, which is the transfers from reserves. So as we build up reserves, we also then use those to pay for our major capital projects as we move forward. And then this year, as mentioned, we also transfer money to reserves, and so we can see how much money we're transferring, how much we're taking out. So it's a constant management issue to make sure those reserves are kept at a healthy level. So looking at that, it gives us a net surplus of $0. As you can see, last year we had $400,000 of additional surpluses, which we took and used to pay for certain expenses and certain increases. Some money went towards the fire reserve and some went towards the recreation reserve, as we anticipated there would be certain growth requirements as we move forward. There is a risk as our ISEP grant that was approved for our St. Clements Activity Center was identified in 2019 dollars, and we are constructing it in 2023, so there's an anticipation there may be some cost increases, and we're building up our reserves so we don't have to borrow additional funds. So, along with that is the expenditure of capital. We tend to fund the majority of our capital through reserves so that we're not borrowing. And so, as you can see, we have various charges in here. And what I will draw your attention to is construction activity, which was originally identified somewhere around $50,000 to $60,000 for the Baconia shop expansion, went up to $110,000, mainly due to construction costs. And that was required expansion in order to meet health and safety requirements. We continue to support Lockport by putting $200,000 from our reserves towards the Lockport sidewalk. A dozer purchase has been identified this year, and that was some of that is coming through the funds from the disaster financial assistance, and the dozer purchase has already occurred. The tandem and sander has been identified. The East Selkirk Fire Department driveway has been identified, and at a cost which has continued to increase, which has doubled due to construction inflation already. Boat launch has been identified here, as well as we've identified a Coville sidewalk for additional works that are needed to be able to implement a sidewalk in here. The Baconia well upgrades has been identified in here for $350,000. And then I wanted to draw your attention to the East Selkirk Fire Department Rescue Command Truck. We're in need, and as you'll see in our financial plan, we've got 5 years of planning identified for our fire departments, and this is no small amount. We have 3 fire departments, and buying equipment at $550,000 every year, even though council is putting in $330,000 every year for reserves, is not sustainable. We need to find a way to manage that. That's why we're continuing to bolster our reserves, so we're not relying on borrowing to buy these pieces of equipment. As well, what you'll see is the South St. Clements utility, which is the plant, and the water lines, which is our regional plant and water lines. As mentioned, we're receiving 50% of the funding. 1 million of that, of our 3.25, is being utilized out of reserves. 2.25, which would be for the component of the water, is gone through borrowing. The borrowing bylaw 4 has already been passed and has gone to the municipal board for approval. Now, the 2.25 that's been borrowed here, it's anticipated that all of that borrowing should be offset by various connection fees. That as we're front-ending the capital, and then people as they connect will pay for their share, would pay their fair share associated with it. As well as we had $116,000 left over from funds from grants that we received for the St. Clements Activity Center building, and those grants will be carried over this year, $116,000. Now, what you'll see is the financing component of it. As I mentioned earlier, there was the $2 million for the recreation center. That's our share of a $6 million project. And then what we have is the water control works, which was the originally $3.5 million was borrowed, and as I mentioned, we had completed much of that work either through operating budgets or we were able to get grants, so $2.7 million of grants to do the Guns Creek diversion. Once we were able to do that, we were able to reduce that borrowing. And we redirected that borrowing towards our infrastructure projects, which was the 5.5 million I had identified. So so this year we finally finished all those works and have started the borrowing. So although we had originally gotten authority to borrow 3.5 million, we only needed to borrow 1.5. And that's the plan for the rest of these projects. We get the authority to borrow what we need, and then based on connectivity or other things, we will move forward. So that goes to explain the 2.25. We are seeking authority for the water lines, the $4.5 million construction, but we anticipate the connectivity fees will help to reduce the actual borrowing on the RM and then reducing the overall amount that we're paying for that. And the $1 million, as I identified, is coming out of the reserves, but the reserves will be paid back through the connection of sewer connections for the $2 million for the lift station and the water and the Lockport plant decommissioning. And finally, the LID that's been established. So as part of the South St. Clements connection for the, when we put the twin force mains in, there were hundreds of residents that wanted to connect, and so they requested to connect through an LID. Some paid cash and some voluntarily went through the LID, and we are borrowing $981,000, which will be paid directly by those properties that are benefiting from those connections. So, now that we've discussed some of the debt, we need to understand, where do we sit as an RM in our debt capacity? So, as generally speaking, the debt that each municipality faces, the municipal board of Manitoba has a debt policy. And that debt policy says that a municipality cannot exceed 7% of its municipal assessment for its debt. And if you take a look at 7% of our municipal assessment, we are now in better shape than we were last year. We are at 2.53% utilized, and we have a remaining, 447 or 4.47% out of the 7% still remaining. So we're in a very positive situation. And as I continue to mention this at every financial plan hearing, large municipalities like Winnipeg, like Brandon, maybe not as much Brandon, but definitely Calgary and Toronto, they hit their debt ceilings on a regular basis. This municipality has continued to show proper asset management and debt management, and we're still at a very high level. That 4.47 translates to $40 million in borrowing that we have available in the RM. Along with that, the Municipal Board of Canada debt policy also states that a municipality's payments for that debt, so one is the amount of assets you have and what's the value of the assets and what percentage, which you can't exceed by 7%. The other is how much income you're getting, which is the amount of taxes, the annual revenue that the RM is receiving from taxation and other revenue sources, but not including education levies. And then it says you can only borrow up to 20% of that. So much difficult or much more harder requirement on the municipalities than it would be put on an individual. And so at 20%, we are presently at 11.18% is still available, which translates to $2.5 million in payments. Last year, we were at $1.9 million in payments. So as you can see, as our municipality continues to grow, it brings in additional revenue, and that revenue helps to offset the amount of debt that we can also appropriately take on. But that's not the only issue in debt. How is debt funded? How are those payments funded is another part of that. So general taxes only pay for 33% of all that debt. And so the balance of that debt is offset by cash inflows, such as LIDs, as we just discussed, 981, because it's in and out. Whatever we're borrowing, we're collecting directly as part of the taxes over and above the regular taxation. So those are your LID payments. So 21% of that is through LIDs that we presently hold. So as I mentioned earlier, we had 4.47, so out of the 2.53% of debt that we have, 33% of that is paid through general taxes. The rest is paid through 21% through LID. The gas tax and grants pay for 42%. So we utilize our gas tax and grants. And then the utility rates pay for the other. So utilities themselves, as the utility incurs, such as our water and wastewater utilities, they also pay towards that debt. And people pay for that through the utility rates. And so, but, as I mentioned, we had the debt being paid through the reserves. So, a perfect example of those reserves is if you take a look at council made a commitment when council, this particular council took over in 2018. Take a look at their reserves. The reserves were sitting at $2.3 million in 2018. At the end of 2022, we're sitting at $7.8 million in reserves, so that we can actually take on those types of debts and manage it properly. So, as an example, gas tax I mentioned helps to pay for it, but you will see that we have continued to increase our gas tax throughout the term of this council and as we move forward. And but you'll also see we have reserves established, and these are specific purpose reserves. And so when we take a look at a fire reserve, as you can see, it can drop significantly when we have to buy one piece of equipment, and we have 3 fire departments. And so as we build up those reserves, and then we can then slowly manage that. So the plan is, as part of proper asset management, that as we continue to put these monies into these reserves, then you make the municipality much more sustainable, because all that equipment and many of those purchases, those large capital depreciating equipment that you're purchasing, is paid through cash as opposed to borrowing. And so, and what we have is funds in utility expansion on the various utilities that are used to fund those utilities. So at some point, the utilities become fully funded and fully support themselves, requiring less and less on general taxation. So that talks to our debt, our borrowing, our mill rate. So what are some of the highlights? Well, we are putting in 1 mill rate towards road infrastructure of $903,717. Stabilizing our reserves from year-end surpluses in 2023, we're beginning at $7.8 million. Supporting recreation with a $200,000 towards the reserves, as well as the development of the South St. Clements Activity Center as a community recreation project. Construction of a boat launch at $300,000. Continue to support business community through a $50,000 biz improvement zones that we've established in Lockport and Grand Marais, where we're paying $1 for every dollar the business community brings forward to do enhancements to the public realm. Commitment to community and volunteer groups and grants, as I mentioned, well over $190,000 in grants that we're providing. Delivery of the next phase of the strategic infrastructure priorities, which is $6.5 million in sewer projects that will be happening this year, water and sewer. Fiscal and cash flow management, as I mentioned, not relying on our operating line of credit. And we continue to implement the 3-year budgeting strategy to provide a level of predictability for our ratepayers and the operations of the RM. We're also increasing the services, as I mentioned earlier, for dust control, gravel roads, grass cutting, drainage, brushing, and ditching this year, that we've been able to do due to fiscal management that was done previously by council. Also, in 2023, a new commitment is being made to complete previous hard surface roads, and that's at approximately $3.5 million of investment this year. And that's the end of my presentation, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much for that, Deepak, much appreciated. I think you put a lot of work into that. There's lots of good information there for not only council, but for all our residents and our guests. And right now I'm going to open it up if there are any questions from our guests this evening, and if we'll see where we go from there.
Okay. You're saying about the sidewalks.
we've had lots of questions at the condo zone. Is that going to be along 44 in front of business areas? Is that where you're planning on it?
The plan is to put $200,000 towards sidewalk or public realm improvements in Lockport as part of the project for that the province is doing for the upgrades to Highway 44 and Henderson Highway intersection. They will be putting in sidewalks in on Henderson going south and on both sides of 44. So that will allow it to become a much more walkable community. This will allow us to invest further investment into that community to make sure that our public realm is safe, walkable, and has an attraction to our visitors. And that's the intent.
That's good, yeah, that's excellent. The other thing is, have you received yet the Manitoba Municipal Board's final approval of the water?
Good question. We sent out another email today, and have we heard a response back yet?
We did not.
We still have not received a response back yet. One of their main people is away on holidays right now. He's an out-of-office supply. We went directly to the municipal board, and it's been sitting with them for several weeks now. I will say that we did not get any objections to the borrowing associated to that project. So it's a good chance that it'll get approved from the Manitoba Water Services.
Which time, after that, you will go to tender, I imagine.
I have already authorized the Manitoba Water Services Board to proceed with tendering and take the risk of the $10,000 or $15,000 for the sake of the RO.
Okay, that's good. The other thing was communication, and I know that the council over the last few years it's been a lot better to get information from the council on your websites, etc. With the amount of, with the water coming through to Lockport, is it possible, what we would like to see is, if possible, some type of communication going to the taxpayers that are going to receive that water, letting them know approximately the costs, the timelines and everything from the council. I don't know whether you put it online specifically or send letters out to them, because we are starting to get questions as to how much is it going to cost, when is it coming. From my point of view, I wish the water had been there yesterday, but the communication should come from the council. It should not be coming from the boards, the corporation boards. The other thing is we have to be able to, in our disclosures, we have to have any upcoming major projects that are going to cost a lot of money. We have to disclose that when we're selling property or anything. We have to have that in our disclosures, and we can't do that until we get information from council. So we would really appreciate that if we can.
We certainly
When you
can.
have it ready, if you could let us know, and then because it has to be included in our legal documents.
Madam Mayor, may I answer that?
Go right ahead.
We certainly can, and our intent is, council's intent is to communicate. So council's intent was, when the twin force mains were put in, to allow all those individuals from the border of East St. Paul to Lockport to be able to connect into our sewer system. So we went out and communicated to all residents. We had open houses, explained what the options were and what those costs are. So at this point, we've received approval from the Water Services Board. That has been made public as part of the public hearing that was held for the borrowing to do the water lines. And so once we get the approval from Manitoba Waters, or from the Municipal Board, we will then communicate to the residents. My commitment to council as well as to the residents was, once we had these approvals, that we would review our connection fee charges and be able to get a bylaw established from council, which will then be another level of communication. And then we will be contacting each of those residents. And as we did for the sewer project, they will all receive a letter.
That's what I would like to see, because right now I'm doing I'm releasing as much information as I can to all our 150 homeowners, but there's a certain amount of communication has to come the dollars and cents and the timelines and everything, we really would appreciate having something come from council to them so that they, they know what it is up front, because it does make a difference to them going forward.
Definitely,
Really appreciate that.
there'll be communication going to all the residents in the condo corporation,
Yeah.
150 residents, as well as all the businesses in Lockport, that they will have an opportunity to be able to connect to the water.
That's wonderful, yeah, and any hookup fees, according to our declarations, it has to go to the taxpayer, not to the corporations. I did forward on to you the little blurb from our declarations and everything, and just so that you know, yeah. But no, it's great, really appreciate what you've been doing, so it's super, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Peter, have you got anything that you would like to ask council this evening?
No, thank you, Liz.
You're welcome. Okay,
So,
anything else?
Just one last item, Madam
Yeah.
Mayor. As part of this, after we finish our public open house, we put out our St. Clement's budget overview in written form, which
Good.
speaks to
That was the
all
other
the
thing I was
items.
thinking about, and I forgot, could we have a copy, or is it online that I can print it off?
It'll be online, 15 pages worth, or 14 pages worth, online, that'll be made available as of tomorrow.
Okay, that's great, that's super, absolutely great, thank you, because what I'll do is I'll run a copy for each one of the corporations.
And if there's any further questions, and as mentioned, this is the open house, we will have our public hearing coming up.
Sounds good, thank you. Thank you very much for your help.
Thank you for coming out this evening. And if there are no further questions, I will call for the adjournment of our public open house on the financial plan. And it is 7:10.
Recording stopped.